Welcome to the Marketing Revolution podcast. This is the underground movement of savage marketers from all over the world. We are not Fortune 500 companies. We are real entrepreneurs with real businesses that have one major thing in mind: to set goals and devour them daily. Because we understand that everyone wants to eat, but only savage marketers are willing to do the hunt. Now let's get this revolution started. Hey, what's up, everybody? John Hiley here with the Marketing Revolution podcast and the Marketing Savage Facebook group. I'm bringing you today one of the most savage people I know, and that's my boy, Zack Hughes, who is an Army Green Beret Special Forces. And in my, I know I'm not good. I know Zack is very humble, but I'm going to tell you, and I wrote this on a post earlier today, that Zack is an American hero. And I'm so humbled and so happy to have Zack on this podcast because, man, he's just one of them dudes that that you look up to, and his story is amazing. So welcome, Zack.
Yeah, thanks, man. Well, first of all, I appreciate the intro. That's huge. I really appreciate it. Glad to be on, man. I love what you're doing.
I appreciate it, my friend. I appreciate it, man. And he's got the Stay Savage shirt on. And
hey, deliberately wore this, just so you know. This is not an accident today.
Right on. And one of the reasons why Zack's on this podcast today is because I thought it would be great to just not only hear Zack's story, and because many of you guys know that I've been and always will be a massive supporter of the United States military. And all of the members of the United States military. I mean, I can't even tell you how many of my friends served in the military. My brother served in the military, Marine. And,
Nice.
It's an incredible honor. And I want to feature as many military members as we possibly can on the podcast, because that's such a dope thing. And I think that we have our freedoms today just because we have a military standing at the door, making sure that people got other countries who would love to just terrorize us in any way possible, that we got the powerful military to protect ourselves. And it's one of the reasons that we all have the freedoms that we enjoy today. So it's a super important podcast. And I want to get
fired up, dude.
Yeah, man. That's it.
I'm sorry, I mean to cut you off, but you're pulling at the right strings right now.
Yeah. And see, some of you guys don't really understand like how hard it is to be part of the military special forces. So Zack, why don't you take us back a little bit in your story? What inspired you to be involved in the military, and what took you into the special forces? And then I want to get into the discipline of what it took to get through the type of training that you had to do.
Yeah. So I think that, first of all, 9/11 was a huge day in my life. Sitting in 10th grade, watching the TV. My economics teacher was an older man that was in Vietnam. And so that moment was just intense for him, for all the students. And at the time, I mean, what do I know in 10th grade, right? Like it was something big I knew was going on. And when my seniors in my school were freaking out because some of them were excited about joining the military and some of them were like, oh shit, we're going to get drafted. That whole conversation was happening in our high school at the time.
Hey, Zack. So that means I don't want to interrupt you by this, but I just got to say this because I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast. But my son, who's sitting right out here, was born on that day. So he was born
on September 11th, 2001.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where I was sitting that evening. So
wow.
It was a very impactful day for me as well in several ways. So it's so conflicted,
Yeah, that's an interesting day, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild. So we, it was just an impactful day, right? 9/11 happened for everybody, no matter if you were in a hospital or you were in New York or you were in a school in Texas like I was. It was, kind of like stop in your tracks. What's going on after this? And so for me, it was like, well, I got to join the Army. Like, it's time to do this. I grew up in a militaristic family. You know that. We don't have to get into the details of a lot of that stuff. But my grandfather was in the Army, and my aunt and a few people around me. And I got great lessons about being in the military as a young man. And so when 9/11 hit, it was pretty much line in the sand. I've got to go join the Army. And then I didn't do that. I went to college, and then I went to grad school, and I took my time, which happens in life. And my mom was like, as a typical mom, didn't want me to go serve. So I think that sort of kind of dragged my feet a little bit because I was listening to her at the time. And then ultimately, I made the decision after school that, I got, once again, let's draw a line in the sand. I got to be my own person. I've had this itch on my back that I can't scratch for a number of years, and it's time we send it. And so I ultimately joined with a special forces contract. The United States military will give you a contract and a piece of paper that says, hey, you will be a Green Beret, you will be a Navy SEAL as long as you don't mess this up. Go in here and perform and pass the gates and do well, and you're in. Just don't mess it up. And as we all know, most people mess it up. And so for me, that's kind of my entrance in. And, I didn't have a clue the amount of discipline that was necessary in order to be successful in this. The piece of paper is the easiest thing that I got. And then after that, it was just tons and tons of hard work, of just rising to the occasion, of practicing the little things that are stupid over and over again, when most people wouldn't do that. I think that's one of the things that early on was pretty beneficial for me, was just to understand that we got to outwork everybody here. Like, everybody's working hard. It's like, you can imagine being an athlete, a professional athlete, right? Like, everybody's working hard at some point. There's a lot of people here that have great talent. That's just, they're going to do better than me. They're 6'4", they're athletes. They played college football. They went to the NFL, whatever it is. I've just got to do something really good. And I got to work harder than everybody. And so that's kind of how my niche worked for me going through the Special Forces course. I mean, I wasn't 5'10", 175-pound dude, runs fast, because I knew that was the metric we needed to do. Stay lean, run fast. Okay, check. That's what I'll do. If we needed to be big and throw weights, that's what I would have done. But realistically, it's all calisthenics based. And so that's some of the things that guys get wrong going in. They're pretty big, or they can't run fast, or they can't do pull-ups. You got to practice for the test. And so I went all in on the test, and ultimately, fast forward 2.5 years later of all this work, I was our class valedictorian. And that's not because I was some freak of a military guy. I came off the streets and worked harder than everybody for 2.5 years.
So let me ask you a question, because some of that, I mean, there's something that's the equivalent of like a Hell Week for the Green Beret. Is that correct?
Yeah. So for the SEALs, it's Hell Week. For Special Forces and Green Berets, it's called Selection. It's 19 days, just brutal. You don't get much sleep. You don't get much food. You just get yelled at. It's kind of what you'd see, like if you saw the video clip of all the special operations trainings. It's like the miserable point. And that's, for us, it's called Selection.
So let me ask you something. When you're at the deepest level mentally, I'm sure that you've been put to a level of mental hell that most people probably can't even fathom in their entire life. When you're at that deepest level of mental hell, what place do you go in your mind? Where do you feel that you actually can go inside of your mind to not only deal with that, but probably try to escape it or transcend from the moment?
Yeah, it's incredible, because I've gotten so much better at this since that selection we're talking about.
Yeah.
At that point in my life, I had zero mental training. I had zero special forces training. You're not a trained special forces guy before this. And so it's kind of funny, because after that point, they teach you how to deal with it. That they teach you throughout the course of how to deal with this mental anxiety and, imposter syndrome and all these things that are going to come up. Your body's going to fail you. How do you get out of your head and think about something else? And, I'm good at that now, but I was not good at that at the time. And they kind of want to see if you have the ability to learn these things. And so, that's why the fail rate is so high, but guys that go back a second time, it's like not as high, because you've had that rep. It's not the like unforeseen future that kind of messes you up. And so for me going through, I looked around, I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of friends that were there, and all of these guys were studs in their own way. We had Ivy League college guys and dudes that barely graduated high school from nowhere, Texas. And it's just this beautiful mix of the most incredible humans from all over. We got people that weren't Americans. We got people that are like, it's just wild. It's crazy. We got guys that were Olympians and guys that were like barely meeting the standard, and both were passing and both were failing. And so for me, it was like, we got to do the right things right, whatever it is, run fast, do whatever. But specifically for the mental part, I was just trying to survive. Like, I was literally trying to survive, and I was getting motivation from the guys around me. And so early on, I made friends with what I would consider the studs, like a good group of guys that were like in better shape than me, kind of had their life better, like together than me. And I could just tell that like they weren't really playing games. It was on the elite caliber for preparation, day to day, night to night. And so that was my circle. And I knew that was going to give me a better chance than there's like circles of dudes that were partying, circles of dudes that were like interested in meeting girls. And like, then there was the warriors in my mind that were like getting after it. And it was clear to me early on, I needed to go to that circle, find that circle immediately, no matter what you're doing, right? Your peers is kind of like what sets you apart. It doesn't have to be special operations. That can be in business, as well. And so for me, I had to go find those guys. Most of them were in better shape than me off the bat. but I just kept making it sort of a competition internally where I was like, okay, well, I look over and I'm like, okay, he's doing pretty good. I can do this. Like I can do, if he's doing this, I can do this. And that's how it's going to go down. And so I just consistently kept thinking about competing with my friends. There was a point, I'll tell you a quick story in selection, where I had this really good friend of mine. He's an incredible Green Beret, still active today. And he used to be an amateur hockey player and a huge CrossFit guy. Like he went to the regional games in CrossFit. You know, this has been a while back when it wasn't as elite as it is now. And just a tank, right? And he ran his 5 mile run time was like, I think it was like 35 minutes or something like that, like moving pretty quick for like a big hefty guy. And I would always follow him no matter what. This is like in selection, not during the course, but like in selection, I would follow this monster who was a really good friend of mine and still is. And because I knew he was faster than me, but he was only like a little bit faster than me. And when it came down to selection, it was so early this morning. It was like the sun hadn't even came up because it was hot and they wanted us to get our hard stuff in before the sun came up because they didn't want people getting heat strokes and heat exhaustions. We had lost a few guys that week to like literally having heat strokes, like frying their brain, having problems. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to run behind my dude here. I'm not going to say his name. I'm going to try not to. And we ran, we did the 5 mile run and I was feeling it at the end. And at the very, very end of this run, I mean, like the last 100 yards or so. And we also have these GPS monitors in our shoes, kind of like if you were doing a 5K or something so that they can track who came in what place. And so they tell you, you know, when you cross the finish line, get about 5 seconds between each other, get a little buffer so that the machine doesn't mess up. And that went in one ear and right out the other for me. And so when we're running, I'm following my dude. And at the end, I don't know, I'm feeling it, right? I'm like really feeling it the last couple hundred meters. And so I time it perfectly so that I can sprint past him at the very last, like couple feet, like really, really cheap. And, because I've got to beat him. Like I've got in this, and this is a good friend of mine. And like, I've got to beat this human in front of me, whoever it is going to make me faster. It's not really about beating him, but it's about getting every second that I can, because that's going to go into our spreadsheet. And so I ran in front of him at the last second, beat him. The cadre member yells out and he's like, "Oh, that's fucked up." And like literally said it. And I don't know if we can cuss on here. Sorry. And so,
oh no, you're good, man.
Okay. All right. So we're savage here. Got it. Check.
Oh yeah. This is a fucking cussing podcast.
Good. I'm gonna thrive in here then. And so the cadre is like, "Oh shit, that's fucked up." And we went over there and like basically died. I threw up, I think, a couple times. Scott was just like falling on the ground. You know, we were like literally exhausted. Like that's the body's done. And he was mad at me. He was so mad at me. I already said his name. He was so mad at me for like probably like a year. I think if I mentioned it to him again today, he would be salty about it. But it wasn't for him, and I didn't care. And it wasn't like we were competing realistically. It's an algorithm of your times. But I had to compete. Like I had to get the fastest that I could, and that had to be from him. That had to be in front of me. And I think that that's the mentality that people need to take when you're trying to find some way to be an elite version of yourself. Is you have to. I found ways to do it through other people, through competition, and through just like being aggressive mentally. Like if he can do this, I can do this. Not the opposite of like, this guy's 6'5" and he's 240 and he runs that fast. How is that humanly possible? I can't do that. No, the opposite of that. More like I'll be able to beat him in 6 months. I'll be able to beat him in 9 months, or I'm just going to try as hard as I can to get as closest to him because I know that'll make me faster. And I continue that paradigm and that philosophy for the next 2.5 years. And when the dust settled, it really worked out for me.
Mm-hmm. So there was 2 things that I caught like during you talking about how you deal with this. One of the things is that if you fail once, when you come back, your likelihood of succeeding is that much better because you know all of the unforeseen challenges that are going to come forth. So how does that apply in business? Like everything that you're saying right here not only applies to physical fitness, applies to the military, applies to special forces, but it applies to anybody who is moving the needle on a daily basis on an elite level. The second thing that I caught is that you immediately knew which crowd to surround yourself with. meaning that Jim Rohn, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So you looked at everybody. You could have easily said, man, I'm not as good as these elite savages over here. I'm going to fall in with the, the guys that are over here looking for girls, or the guys who are partying, or the ones that have the imposter syndrome and don't even think they should be here. See, Zack didn't do that. What he did was he scoured his environment. He said, these guys look like the people I want to be like. These are the people that I want to surround myself. Yeah, they're better than me. How many times do people get into a crowd and they say, man, I can't hang out with them guys. They're better than me. I'll feel bad. My ego will be hurt because I'm around these people that make me feel small. Well, guess what? That you have to surround yourself. If you're the king of, if you're literally the king of people, you surround yourself specifically because they're beneath you, then you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's garbage. Completely agree.
Yeah, you got to put yourself in the mix, man. And if you become the smartest person in the room, you better go find another damn room to go sit in.
Yeah, and when you start to see it tangibly, like I look at the different groups of people and I'm like, I don't know if these guys are going to pass or make it, or they're kind of on the fence. I'm not sure. They're acting a little weird. They're being a little immature. And then you see it afterwards. And it's like, they didn't make it. They didn't pass. They didn't successfully create their business, whatever it is. And we got to wake up as humans and be like, okay, like that's proof, right? Social proof. These guys didn't pass. I'm on to something here. Don't fuck this up. Keep doing what you're doing with the people that are around you. And so when we graduated, I went first, my class, my best friend went second, and my other best friend went third. We went 1, 2, 3. And so my roommates that I lived with for the next 5 years in Florida, he was third in our class. I was first in our class, and my other friend was second. And my other friend that's second is now a cadre member for us in Operators Association. He's a good guy. He got a little messed up in Syria and he had to get out about the same time I did. And, thinking back, it's like, dude, I don't even know that we knew that, right? We knew it, but we didn't really know that, like, we were studying together, we were running together, we were practicing together. And then it was like, towards the end of the course, it was like, that's kind of the group that people wanted to be with. But it wasn't like that at first, because we weren't the guys that were like going out and doing fun stuff and like taking trips to places. We were the motherfuckers that were working. And so it really, really worked out for us in the end, but it took 2.5 years of struggle, where everybody else was kind of, some guys were having a way better time through that 2.5 years than us. And frankly, I did zero fucks for me, because I came there for one reason.
And I think people don't quite realize that, because let's talk about the difference, because and I'm not downplaying anybody who's a Navy SEAL, but what's the time?
We can do that. We can do that as long as possible.
Yeah, right. So let's talk a little bit about the time. I don't think people realize that the Green Beret Special Forces is actually a much longer commitment, and it's much more academic heavy than that of becoming a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, it's wildly different. So I always tell people big differences between Navy SEALs and Green Berets, real quick, and say it like 1 minute. Is SEALs come into an objective, they clear the house, they clear the targets, they take out the bad guys, they rescue the hostages, they get back on the boat, get back on the plane, get back on the ship, go back to the base. That's the mission. Very high level, precision, pinpoint accuracy, dominating it, doing it well, best in the business at that. Special Forces, which is a term specifically used for Green Berets that everybody messes up. So Green Berets, what we do is not that. What we do is we collect intelligence for months. We go into a denied area. Unconventional warfare is our platform. Behind enemy lines, we embed with the local, I would say, villages for the most part, the local community, the indigenous population, and then by, with, and through them, we train them, we teach them stuff, we show them where the bad guys are, and then we go take out the bad guys with them collectively, usually on missions that can last anywhere up to a month to 6 months in the ground overseas, like living in your rucksack, basically. So wildly different in terms of just the jobs themselves. And because of that, the training is wildly different. The SEALs focus specifically on what we just discussed, kind of going into houses, clearing it, getting out, making sure that that's the best in the business. And then for Green Berets, because we live in these foreign countries for so long, isolated on a 12-man team, each person's job has to be very academic and very right. Like if I'm the guy that's in charge of communications for the team, and we literally spent 28 days in Afghanistan living out of our backpacks, and it was my job as the communicator to make sure that we had for 28 days enough batteries and enough technology and power to be able to stay mission critical and be able to send up products and PowerPoints and like let people know what we're doing. If it fails, we all fail and we have to leave. And so the academic portion of the course has to prepare each individual person for that. It's wildly different. And so buds for the Navy SEALs is 6 months long. The Special Forces course for me, I went straight through. I didn't fail anything, didn't recycle anything, took 2.5 years. Very common for guys to take 3.5 years to go through the entire course as a student. So wildly different, a lot more academic. You learn a foreign language in Special Forces, which is a little bit different as well, because you have to go into that foreign country. So you kind of become a PhD level, an analyst of that certain area that you're going to go to, what's called your AOR. And you've got to speak the language, got to talk the language so that you can embed in that culture.
You know, it's so interesting what you said there. As soon as you started talking about speaking the language and all this kind of stuff, immediately, you know, being the marketing savage, my mind goes into a marketing place, right? Because a lot of times it's a lot like that in marketing, but of course, not in the sense of being on the ground. It's like we got to find a certain population that wants a certain thing. We got to learn how to speak their language, because you're not going to sell skateboards to skateboarders if you're talking golfer language, right? You almost got to know their lingo. You got to know what their triggers, what their hot buttons are. You've got to analyze that. And then you've got to be able to put something in front of them that they desperately want and need and move them to attack your checkout. Right.
There it is, dude.
You know, it's like see, Zach is sitting here. He's telling me this, and it's such a fucking awesome thing, man. And what you guys do over there is incredibly powerful. And I know your entire story because you talked about it at Apex Executive, and such a powerful story. But some of this stuff, like I'm actually seeing Zack do in the marketing realm, because Zack is out there building a brand. He's out there helping people while he's building the brand. He knows the lingo. He knows exactly who his ideal client and customer is, and he's speaking their language. I mean, Zack, you probably have one of your YouTube videos that came up, man. What is it, like 7 million views or something like that, just on one video?
Yeah, I think so, something like that.
So not only has Zack learned how to attack the keep our country safe by attacking a landscape of ISIS predators, but he's also learned how to create products and things like that people want out there in the market, and to deliver that on multiple social media platforms. You know, we got Zack Hughes on Instagram, Operators Association, all kinds of great stuff. And Zack, I've seen that you're recently just doing some community workouts as well.
Yeah, I started that, I think, October or so. I know that I switched. Everything I was doing was digital, and it was like I can do that, but I'm a tangible person. I'm more of a blue collar dude, and so I started realizing that there was people local to me that have been following me that are like leaving, shipping out to go be Navy SEALs, be Green Berets for a while. Let's get them together and let's provide a monthly workout for them, kind of see what's going on. The first month I did it, I kind of slapped it together on Instagram, and like 35 guys showed up, and I was like, okay, so we got a real thing here. Let's go to work. And it's been incredible. It's been fun to be able to give back to the local community. We've got a cool spot here in Fort Worth, Texas, that I take the guys to the trail and then make sure that they're doing what they need to do and having conversations like they need to have so that their mindset's ready to rock when they hit the ground. They don't make some of the mistakes that I've seen. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to be able to give back to the community that's right here. And now we've been doing it long enough that people are shipping out, and I'm pretty excited to be able to see when guys come back. We've had Operators Association long enough that I've got graduates now that are actual SEALs and actual Green Berets that can come back and mentor our guys in the company. And it's funny that we're already there because the SEALs graduate so fast because it's not as hard. Let's be honest. No, I'm joking. But yeah, it's been fun, man. It's been full circle.
So what I consider you, and likely, or actually anybody who's completed that type of training in Special Forces and Navy SEALs as well, I would consider all of you guys what we call in business cleaners. And what a cleaner is somebody like Michael Jordan. In fact, a cleaner could even be a house mom. But she's so fucking good at her job, like so good at it, so good at taking care of her kids. Like she literally cleans house. And what a cleaner means, it means when everybody else can't do shit with the situation, they got to call in the baddest motherfuckers on planet Earth to come in and clean up fucking house, right? You know, one of the things Michael Jordan was known, and this all come from the book Tim Grover, who talks about cleaners, closers, and somebody else, some other people that we don't want to be like, right? But specifically cleaners and closers. And cleaners are the ones that typically have a trigger. And one of the things that Michael Jordan had, he had a trigger that when you talk shit to Michael Jordan, you better leave a fucking sleeping dog lie, especially if he's having a bad game and you go spout off and talk some shit to Michael Jordan. Not only are you on his hit list for the next 10 years in every basketball game you ever step in front of him on, to top it off, you became his fuel, his trigger, that I think Michael Jordan had close to a 40-point quarter and won a game when somebody triggered him by talking shit to him on the third quarter. And he looked at him. He said, man, you should have just left a sleeping dog lie, because next thing you know, the rock was in his hand and it was going through the hoop every single shot that he made. Now, you have to get in this mindset, right? So you go on a special forces mission. You've got to get in this mindset. There's a trigger there, right? Where you got to come into a mindset, not only where you are super focused, but where you're connected to your team. You know, what do you feel that it took to get you in? And a lot of people call this flow state, going into flow state, you know. What do you think that it really took, and what it triggered you when you got ready to go into a mission to not only get into the right mindset, to clean house, to go in there and do your job at the highest level, because now you're just putting in work. It's pure focus, but to actually connect with your team on a level that's, you know, what a lot of people would call, you know, when a basketball team just comes on fire, right? Next thing you know, every ball is passed perfect. Every shot is nailed, right? And it's a state of mind that we go into a flow state, getting into the flow. What did it take for you to get into that state of mind?
You know, it's funny when you talk about the flow state, which I've never heard that term, but I like it. I'm going to use it here. When there's two flow states, in my opinion, when you're elaborating that, I think of two flow states, not really just one. I think of mine, I'm flowing, and then our team's got to flow. And those are actually two separate things. You're waging two wars. I just thought of that as you were talking about it, because I'm thinking about pre-mission, like some of the requirements that we did, some of the systems that we had, what we did. And it was two separate things. It's the team itself, sort of like 2007 Tom Brady, New England Patriots. They went 16-0, right? Like they didn't lose. That is flowing. Like that textbook definition, flowing.
Yeah.
Now they lost the Super Bowl, but 16-0 is insane. And so for a team, you can flow together, but it's got to be tight. And so the thing for our special forces teams that puts us over the edge in general is that we know each other. And because it's not like we know each other a little bit. We know each other, I would tell you, more than any NFL team on the planet, more than any basketball team, more than any other NBA team. And the reason is because we're always together. You live with these guys. You don't just practice 70 hours a week. You go to Afghanistan for 24/7 for 7 months, or some other country or some other trip where you're out for weeks and months. And so, and during hard times of adversity, number one, you learn who you are, but you learn who other people are. And so good and bad. And that's how you can mature in terms of this flow state, because all of our weaknesses on a team are out. It's not pansy caking the world. It's like, imagine if you had 12 Michael Jordans on a team and you're doing something. But dudes are getting in people's faces. Like guys are calling people out, but it's all productive. All of it's productive. And it kind of like you come in and you've been kind of shit on for 2.5 years during the Q course, but they've taught you so much, you have no idea. You're ready to take all this criticism in stride and just move back, like not have the emotional piece tied to it. That's the killer that most people can't have. And the 2.5 years in the Q course extracts that DNA out of you step by step through all of this different stimulus that you're expected to do. And you fail almost all of it. And you just don't know, but you're supposed to fail it. And so it prepares you to get on your team so that your team sergeant who's in charge of your team can be like, hey, you suck, fix it tomorrow or don't come back. And you can be like, Roger that. And you fix it. And so for flow state, when you have a situation of so much autonomy and like where you can just say, hey, captain, or, major or sir or team sergeant, people that are way older than you'd be like, I think you're wrong there. And they'd be like, okay, well, tell me why. And then if you're right, then you're good. If you're not, he's going to tell you to shut up. That breeds this culture of getting things right. That's what it does. It takes away the humanity emotion piece. And it's like, we're just about X's and O's and getting whatever we're about to go do, which happens to be really, really important, perfect. And so then it comes into the, just the countless hours of practice that we do with each other and things like that. I mean, I think I was telling you that before a mission, if we go into a night shoot, my same team, no attachments, nobody else, just the 12 guys that I know, I can pick out in a dark room who's who without a doubt. I mean, like I'm talking a pitch black room. I can, with night vision goggles, and I'm basically looking at silhouettes, I can be like him. You can mix them up, and we've done
And
that.
you're dressed like a marshmallow person.
Yeah, you can't tell who's who at all. Like you really can't. But I know how people stand. I know how they breathe. If it's cold, I can tell by their breaths, like their posture, the way that they're holding their arms. Like it's just, I've done it so many times with these guys. Like, oh, okay, there's Bob, Jim, Chad. I'm just random names. And that's flow state. Because then when we go into a house, we're not playing basketball. We're clearing houses and we're taking care of business. I know exactly what everybody's going to do because I've seen them do it a million times. And we've done so many of the bad things 100 times over and over that we know each other aren't going to do that. So that kind of sets up internally your flow state to be, you're doing some of the most dangerous things you've ever done in your entire life. Going into a house and killing bad guys, right? We'll just use the most aggressive example. And if somebody trips and falls and like holds down the trigger on their gun, we could take out like 4 drops a grenade. Like somebody does something really stupid, like guys are going to die, period. It's happened too many times in life. And so individually, it's hard to get into a flow state if you're worried about the safety or worried about other people or worried in the back of your mind about like, are we the best people in that room? Is there bad guys that are worse than us? Whatever. If you've got all of that 100% locked in and you guys know that you're the baddest motherfuckers coming in this house and you're going to be overly aggressive and you're going to win, then you extract all the drama out of it and you just got to focus on performing internally. So the flow for the team is just through the countless amount of hours that you do things, the rehearsals. I mean, if we have a mission in the morning, like say we had a mission tomorrow, 24 hours from now, I don't know how much sleep's going to be happening tonight. And it's not because you're in your room thinking, it's because we're in the war room talking about everything. What if I go in first and I trip? What's going to happen? And then that long line just goes down that rabbit hole. And we do it again. We do it again up until we leave realistically. And so internally, when you have that amount of confidence, you can just set up your own processes and not have the anxiety of worrying that there's another problem brewing on the outside or safety or someone else. I've had that a lot of times throughout the training and stuff like that. And almost everybody in the military has that at some point. When you get to that level, there's none of that. There's no anxiety in terms of the situation or the people or like some of the things that could go wrong because nothing's going to go wrong because you've done it so many times.
I love it, dude. I love it. And one of the very first things that I caught from that when you were telling at the beginning, when you're out there with your team, is that, just like Michael Jordan, like I was talking about Michael Jordan at the beginning. So I'm going to give another example because Michael Jordan being the cleaner that he was, he would never sink down to anybody else's level. He demanded that you rose to his fucking level. It didn't matter if you were a bench player. He would look across there and say, "Where's Jack, the bench player? Oh, he's in getting his knee iced." He would go into the damn physical therapy room and flip the table over and say, "I played 50 minutes last night. Get your ass out on the court." That's the mentality that it takes. He would throw the rock to you a few times. You get that ball a few times and you fuck up. You ain't getting the ball for the rest of the game. And that's the mentality I've been telling these guys about, what you got to think about being a winner. You never come down to anybody else's level. I had a guy who I business coach who told me he gave away this big commission deal to his under staff. And I said, "Well, how have they been doing with it?" And he said, "Nothing." And I was like, "Dude, you're coming down to their level. You better get the fuck in there and take that shit over and show them how it's fucking done." And bring them up. Force people to come up to your level. Never drop to their level. That's the first learning lesson that I got. And guess what? You do it out of love. You do it out of respect. And you do it out of making people better around you. See, champions don't sit there and come down to other people's level. They bring people up to their level. Okay? So that's the number one thing that I caught there. And the second thing is just the whole connection with the team, and that you guys were like brainstorming and setting up processes. So that way, when you went out into the most dangerous places on planet Earth, you had a system set up that gave you the confidence that if anything went wrong, you guys absolutely 100% knew how to handle it. And having that confidence and having the training and being so immersed in what you're doing, there was nothing or nobody that you were scared of when you got into these situations.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge testament to the course, number one, because the course beats you down to build you up. And I think that I've never seen a system, right? Stepping back as a non-student outside of this, I've never seen a system that, number one, has been so long, right? 2.5 years, that at the end of it, you look back and you're like, wow, like I'm literally a different person now. I've literally become more tough and more mentally resilient, and I understand what we need to do. And like, it's a huge growth experience. And so when you show up to your team, like you're capable of handling that stuff as long as everybody else is handling their shit. And if they're not, they're just going to get fired. And so it becomes incredible. And, you know, a good example, I was thinking about at the very end of our special forces training, there's a test. It's like a final exam, if you will, kind of like if you were a doctor, you'd have to take some board after you finish college. And it's called Robin Sage. It's a month-long exercise. You're all out in the woods doing it. You spend 2 weeks planning a fake mission, a fake deployment into an unconventional warfare platform where you have to help a rebellion overtake an oppressive regime, essentially, which is the special forces job. And so in that example of this 4-week pseudo deployment where you're evaluated on all your skills to be able to do this, I was put in charge of our team because for whatever reason. And so I was in charge of our team. Typically it would be somebody that's been in the military a long time, but you know, it just for some reason I was kind of doing well. So they put me in charge, and our team completely butchered one of our missions. Catastrophic failure is how I would describe it during this Robin Sage experiment. And so I immediately thought the worst. I was like, well, we're going to fail. That's it. We're going to fail. I'm not going to make it. I've made it 3/4 of the way through. I'm crushing everything in my opinion. And we're going to fail this because this mission was failed. And what happened is that I was in charge from an intelligence standpoint, but we had a commander that was the captain, and the captain brought us all together and he said, hey, you guys are fucking this up, and like showed us exactly what we were doing wrong. Actually, it wasn't really me, but it was like the rest of us, like we were all doing stuff wrong. And as a team, it looked bad. And he was like, stop all of this, fix this, 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 and this. And this was a guy that had been in the Army for like 7 or 8 years. He was a captain in the infantry, had a bunch of deployments to Afghanistan and stuff. Good dude. Infantry officer, had a Ranger tab. Like he was kind of getting it done. He fit the mold of somebody that's about to be a commander in special forces. And he was like, you guys need to do this how I would do it. Basically, he was telling us, I'm doing my job, you're not doing yours. And everybody was really upset about it at first because they were like, this fucking captain, he doesn't get it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And one of the guys on my team was like, well, wait a second, let's look at it. And we looked at it objectively, and everybody was like, okay, wait, he's right. Like my guys were getting a little pissy because we hadn't eaten and like tensions were starting to flare. People thought they were going to fail pretty soon, but people weren't looking at it outside the box. And we took a step back and we're like, dude, and without giving too much of the details of it, we were like, he's right. Why don't we just think about it that way? Think about he's right. And what he doesn't want us to do, he doesn't want to come down to our level. He wants us to rise to his. And so when we started thinking about it that way, which was not my idea, somebody in the teams, everything changed. And we were like, let's just send this thing. And he was 100% right. And it literally, I think we still failed the mission. So obviously none of us failed. There's a lot of stuff that you do and you're supposed to fail it. You just don't know. But that was kind of the line in the sand. We talked about a line in the sand earlier. With your example, he was not going to come down to us and be like, hey guys, everything's fine. We're good here. You know, just tighten it up. He was like, no. You guys are fucking this up. Like this is going to go bad for you. And I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing right. And I'm showing you how I'm doing it right. This is how you're doing it wrong. Fix what you're doing wrong. And it was like so stoic that our guys weren't ready for that yet. We were ready for it on a team, but we weren't ready for it at that point. And in my opinion, that's why he's one of the best officers in special forces right now, is because he showed the men at that time the leap that they need to take in order to be successful at the next level. And I don't even know if he was doing that on purpose. But I will always remember that example as how it crystallized for me that like, take your emotions out of this. It's X's and O's. It's a playbook. Fix the playbook and then move on.
Nah, man, that's awesome, bro. That's some incredible stuff there. And you're saying that he's actually still a captain?
Yeah, well, no, he's promoted since then. So he's a major now. And he was a special forces commander for a team for a while, did some great stuff. Now officers are kind of a different route for them. He's going to take a company. It's a little bit different. If you become an officer in special forces and you're officer Green Beret, you actually only get a team, an ODA, a special forces team for 2 years. And you can't be on a team anymore. You kind of go command from a higher perspective. So they're not on the ground doing a lot of cool guy stuff for only a few years.
Yeah, it's one of the things I learned from reading a book about FBI, a body language specialist. I read a book about that, and one of the things that he said that people are trained in the FBI to immediately think is, what if they're right and I'm wrong?
Yeah.
And it's not that the other person is right all the time, but it's maybe you should always look at that angle first, right? So because we're always inclined to immediately think that we're right. But why not open up your mind and be open to the idea that maybe somebody else is right and that you're wrong in this moment?
Yeah,
At
it's
least,
incredible stuff.
yeah, at least to be able to explore that and leave the ego out of it, because
That's the big one.
the ego gets you in quite a bit of trouble sometimes.
Oh, it's massive. And I'll give you one more example that's a shorter one. On our teams, when we're doing missions, we do this thing called COA-DEV, COA. It's an acronym. Course of Action Development is what it stands for. And by design, we have a 12-man team. We have one commander. He brings us all together and says, here's the mission. I need you guys to group up in a set of 3. I need you guys to group up in a set of 3 and come up with one course of action. And you come up with another course of action. And then he comes up with a course of action to go, maybe there's a blaring example. There's like some bad guys in a building. We got to get in the building, get the bad guys. And there's probably some piece of intelligence that's going to make us go to our next mission. How are we going to get in the building? And so all 3 of those teams create an entire workup of a mission brief to like how we would get in. And we've all got different ideas. We decided we were going to jump in. One team decides they're going to fly in or like drive in. And then another team's like, no, we're going to take our rucks and we're going to ruck in. And then all different entrances, the whole thing. Course of action development. And then the captain, and by the way, this is about, if we have time, this is a week-long process with each of us building about a 50-slide PowerPoint deck that rivals anything you'll see in Amazon. And so it's very high level. It's not like, oh, I think we should do this. No, that's not going to work. It's incredibly high level. I think some of the SF commanders in this world are PowerPoint wizards that like Microsoft and Dell and like corporate America has no clue about. They are really, really strategic with it. And so because it's got to be, you got to brief embassies and chiefs of staff, like it's got to be a business product. And so course of action development, and then the commander takes all 3 of them and he looks at them and he comes and he talks to everybody and he's like, I like that. I like this. I like this. I like that. Why did you think that way? Why did you think that way? And he pieces together, chain mails our mission based on the best shit that he finds in the course of action development. And that's for time willing, if we don't have something that we need to move hastily on. That is the design for every mission that we go through so that the development is on the team. And that's why guys in special forces are a higher rank and usually older, and we go through more training, is because you're part of this decision-making process. Almost everywhere else in the military, the commander's like, here's what I want to do. Let's go do it. Go do this. No. You're part of this process because you're a Green Beret and you see things differently. You may see things outside the box. You may have another idea. You may get kind of weird with it. We need you to bring your experiences into this and think how you would think. And then the commander makes the decision. And so once again, being a big boy, understanding that your ideas aren't going to get picked all the time, but really trying your best so that we don't A, get killed, and B, we do the mission that we told the United States we're going to go do well.
One of the things that just came to me as you were talking about that is you're literally seeing the power of a mastermind in military language. We talk about that, with the, I've ran several masterminds. I'm part of masterminds. I've tried to explain time and time again on the podcast why it's so important. Just listen to what you heard Zack tell you right there. Look how everybody came together with their ideas, how everybody different groups came together with their PowerPoint presentations. And look how all the explanation and all of that stuff was put together to do something as critical as a mission where literally people's lives are on the line. It's an incredible example of exactly how a lot of businesses are now trying to duplicate the military. I mean, if you look at Google, there's a reason why Google has an open floor plan now. And I'm talking about pre-COVID. They're probably still working at home, but they opened up their floor to where everybody was with each other. All the workspaces were open so they could be connected. The power of all of them minds coming together, because when Jack is doing a program over here, he knows the way Joe's going to respond to it when he sits over here, right? And they can quickly run over and talk to each other and collaborate and put things together. Like, people are literally trying to duplicate the things that are being done in the military at this level inside of business and organizations. And I believe that the businesses that do this and do this well are going to be the most powerful businesses on planet Earth.
Agreed. And it's a system that's easily replicatable, in my opinion. Course of action development. That's like, you don't need to overthink that. It's Google Sheets, directions, send it. Tell me what you think. Timelines, backstops, send it. That's all you got to do.
Simplicity is key, man. Simplicity is key. I always say if you can't put it on a whiteboard and explain it from a whiteboard, then it's probably not a good idea, and it's never going to be done. Now, do you think it's ever at a level? Because I think that perfection is fool's gold, to be honest with you. I think as much as we strive to be as perfect as possible, there's a certain level where you're like, man, this is about as good as it's going to get. We need to go. There's a certain point where you've got to go. Action's got to take place. And I always say that even if you bring me a multi-million-dollar Bugatti and you put it out here, I can find a flaw in that. I've owned body shops for years. Trust me, I can go around and find a flaw on that Bugatti. But the key is to put something together that'll get you bigger and better than anything that you're about to face out there. Right? It doesn't have to be flawless. You just got to be better than the other guy you're getting ready to go to war with.
That's exactly right. And it's not going to be perfect, right? We do the development, and then we go into all the troubleshooting of the bad things that are going to happen. And then when they happen, we just deal with them. A good decision, we got to move fast. And so once you get there, it's very startup-y on a mission. Special Forces is very like a startup business. It's move fast and break things when you're on the ground. Very deliberate, very slow before we hit launch. After that, it kind of all goes to hell, and we're like playing the game, if you will. We're being Michael Jordan on the court with the ball. Like, we've already done the reps, we've already done the practice. Now it's time to flow, and I don't have time to slow down and make these big fucking decisions. It's you go over there, I'm going to go over here. It doesn't really matter if it's right or wrong. That's what we're doing, and we're more aggressive than everybody around us, and we're better than everybody around us, and so it'll work out. And that's literally how it's done.
Yep. And the other thing that I gather from that is the systems and processes are done before they even step into the war. Most people, the problem is they don't do any systems and processes. And then by the time they're under fire, meaning they're getting busy and everything's going crazy, they think that that's the time to do the development of these things. It's not. It's at the beginning. In fact, a lot of tech companies, for another example, on Silicon Valley, they build their systems and processes before they even launch because they anticipate to use them in the future, right? So all kinds of learning examples there, man. And Zach, I appreciate it, brother. I know that we could probably talk all day, and I know your story it goes so deep. It's an incredible story. I know that you were injured during a linear attack. But that's, man, it's just incredible to be out there and fighting for our country the way that you did. And man, just how you're coming back and all the contributions that you're still putting in for your dream. I mean, you're able to live your dream through helping other people achieve what it is that you wanted to achieve your entire life.
Yeah. Well, I think that a big thing about being a Green Beret is being a mentor, and we don't see that sometimes. But going overseas, working with indigenous populations that don't have a clue what they're doing and that are being ravaged by ISIS and Boko Haram and like bad people, I really got passionate about helping some of these soldiers learn how to take back their fucking lands. Like, that's what was happening over there. And it was an incredible experience for me. It kind of changed who I was. And so now when I came back, doing some philanthropic stuff, being a mentor there. Now I'm mentoring the guys here in Operators Association. I wasn't that guy before, just so everybody knows, like, experiences change you if you let them, in a positive and negative. And so for me, life's been a big changing evolution in the last number of years. And I continue to just find a passion project and attack it. And I think what you and I talked about last time, I don't know how many passions you get in life. And, a lot of people stumble through life without finding their passion or whatever that is for them. Building a business, finding a good wife, having a kid, that's passion, whatever it is for you. And for me, it was being a soldier, as being a Green Beret, that was taken from me and I didn't want it to be. And so now I'm just so blessed to have found another passion to be able to give back to people and just stay hungry and stay motivated to be able to knock stuff out. I'm a guy that I need targets, I need milestones, I need checkpoints, I need a war. And so right now I'm going to war with different stuff.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man, I always tell people when they ask me like, how do I find my passion? I say, well, that's got to become your first passion.
Facts, dude. Big facts. I love that. I love that, dude.
I mean,
good shit.
You almost have to spend day in, night out, all your free time, like researching what does it take to find my passion, right? That needs to become your first passion. And then I guarantee you, if that happens, then you're guaranteed to find it.
Yeah, no. And dude, I joined the Army. I was over 25. I'd already went to grad school. Like, life changes. I got guys. I graduated with a dude that was 39 years old, had just put his Green Beret on at 39 years old.
Wow.
And so I'm just saying, like, don't beat yourself up if you haven't found your passion, right? It's out there.
Dude, I'm 40 years old and plantar fasciitis about took me out last week.
Dude, that ain't no joke, man. Plantar fasciitis is no joke.
Stuff like that, man. That's awesome. No, that's incredible, man. That's incredible. So, well, awesome, Zach. I appreciate you, brother. And if anybody's looking for any of your stuff, I know we got some folks out here that live in Texas and probably would love your workouts. We may have some folks on here listening to the podcast who wanted to get involved with your Operators Association. Let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've got a great website that's about to come out, being built by a good friend of mine.
Yep.
So I think that'll be out in the next week or so. Really appreciate your work there, just so you know.
I appreciate it.
It's looking great. So you guys, if you need a website, you should dive into his. Obviously, you're here for a reason in the marketplace. And then operatorsassociation.com is going to be our website next week. Find me on Instagram, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Zack Hughes 1 on Instagram, because somebody stole me. And then that's it. If you're local and you want to get down with some of the workouts, you want to mess with me on Instagram or something like that, shoot me a DM. I'm there. I respond to every DM. So we're making it happen. You and I basically only talk through Instagram. You know that? That's our friendship right now.
Oh, I know, right?
It's funny. I like it.
That's awesome, big dog. Hey, man. Well, I appreciate you, brother. And everybody, man, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I know this is one of my favorite ones. We've been having some lit interviews week after week. And Zack, you, of course, brought the fire like I know you would. And everybody, I appreciate you. And we'll see you on that next one.